Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a lot of potential cold and snow that I'm seeing in a long range. So I apologize, I really haven't been keeping up to date with a lot of the weather videos. One of the reasons is I recently just started a new job in September, so that was kind of a lot to get around at first and keep the schedule with the videos, which obviously I haven't really. But the second and really the bigger, more main reason behind why I haven't been making videos is the weather just has not been exciting. There have been a few events which I definitely could have been making some weather videos on, but it just was boring. It was rather boring, and now it looks as if finally we are entering winter, and there's going to be some signs of snow, some signs of cold air. As you can see above me, the satellite view is absolutely blowing up with all sorts of colors. We have several large systems occurring right now. But more importantly, I want to talk about the long-range outlook, which is what today's video is going to be focused on. In the meantime, let me start off with the GFS and briefly address what is going on right now. Notice that we have a large system moving into the northwestern United States. You can see that on the satellite view above me. We have a very large system moving in across Washington and Oregon and Idaho and into southern Canada, bringing a lot of snow, a lot of mountain snow, and a lot of valley rain. So that is good, replenishing those amounts and areas that really need the snow. The West always, relies on their snowpack, so that's good. A good, nice start, an atmospheric river. But also notice, more importantly, we have a pretty nice area of showers and storms developing across the south, and that will continue to fester with showers and activities of that nature, which could bring potentially some torrential rainfall and some flooding across the southeast. And in fact, if you look above me, above the satellite view, there's the National Weather Service Weather Ready Nation map, which is essentially a map of all the watches and warnings issued by the National Weather Center, and you can see that there's flood watches across the south there in that green color, so that is definitely something to keep an eye on for. Notice that this system that moves into the northwest, it does begin kind of falling apart as we head towards Monday and into Tuesday, but it does end up bringing quite a bit more snow still into portions of Alberta and eventually into Saskatchewan. For the U.S., mainly a snow event for the Bitterroots, Yellowstone, into western Montana, so again, pretty cold air there. But that's not really going to be the main story in the long range. There is going to be, by the way, a little system. I should say it's going to be a pretty nasty one. The details are still a little interesting, but a pre-Halloween storm across the central United States. And notice that the GFS spins this thing up across Iowa, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and it's going to be, again, bringing quite a bit of cool air on the backside of it, but a lot of rain. So if you have some Halloween plans on Thursday and Friday, it's definitely going to be a little wet, especially for the Northeast. There could also be some snow that mix in there across the higher elevated areas of Pennsylvania, so potentially, I guess, the first snow of the season there. And you can see things are getting a little bit more active. However, the week after Halloween looks pretty non-active. So in a short-term activity, right? But then we get a little bit of a break. You can see that the temperatures are really warm at this point. If I were to show you the temperature anomalies, you could see that they are really warm across much of the northwest and western United States, and a little cooler than average across the south, southeast, and eastern United States, but nothing crazy. It's a pretty warm start to November. I saw a lot of people saying it's going to be a really cold start to November. Not quite. The models aren't really showing that. There's going to be a little bit of cool air, colder air than normal maybe, but nothing crazy. Note that as we push this into November 2nd, so this is now the Halloween weekend, I guess, if you want to say, right, and notice that it's pretty calm. However, what we begin noticing, and this is the models, they've been showing this for a few days now, right? So I'm making this video, the first video in a while, but they've been showing this for a decent bit of time. And notice that we see potentially some sort of a cyclone spin up across southeastern Canada, delivering some snow there. But the more important thing is that we develop a south-southeastward flow, or I guess from a north-northwest, right? So we have the jet stream somewhere along here, warmer temperatures, a lot warmer than average here, high pressures, and then colder temperatures here. And this is actually a very similar flow to the 2013-2014 winter. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily, this just right here, these two freeze frames of these weather models are enough to say this is going to be a repeat. No, because there are other things at play. The ocean sea surface temperatures out in the Pacific Ocean are also very similar to what we had in 2013-2014. And more importantly, we have a very similar ENSO setup, meaning that we have a La Nina that is barely a La Nina. Everybody has been talking about a La Nina, a massive, La Nina or just La Nina watch. And I think they're focusing on the wrong thing. The more important and interesting thing is that this La Nina is going to get very borderline, maybe briefly develop for a month or two, and then transition into neutral, which is exactly what happened in 2013-2014. And even more importantly and more rare is that the year before, the 2013-2014 winter, which was that La Nina to neutral transition, was also a neutral. And if you look, last year we had a neutral. So a lot of big pattern things lining up for a 2013-2014 look-alike. And then if you look at this pattern, especially now that the last few days the models have started to hint at this, notice that we have a lot of cold air hitting into portions of the northeast. Notice snow, lake effect snow, pretty much immediately just snapping into winter from a very, very cold or very warm, long fall to a potentially cold November across the northeast. And if you recall my fall outlook, I briefly mentioned that we are going to be having probably a very warm fall across much of the United States, followed by a potential quick snap into winter. And it seems as if the models are indicating that now. And then notice we have potentially a clipper system, right? Delivers snow very far south. This is far out, but the models have been indicating this for a few days now. And again, the more important thing is the fact that we are seeing a northwest to southeast flow of temperature. So this doesn't mean cold air for everyone. If you look across the southwest, look at these anomalies. They are incredibly, incredibly warm. Matter of fact, they're actually a lot warmer than whatever cold air will be across the eastern United States. The models for a few days now have been going back and forth where exactly this kind of jet stream, this cutoff lines up. A few days ago, they were showing that potentially the warm air would be protruding. Arrow can't really see that arrow as it's red on red, but they were potentially showing the warm air all the way into these areas and only a little bit of cold air here. Some were showing all just a giant heat wave, so that was a little concerning. I was like, we are not going to be seeing a cold winter if something like that sets up. But it seems as if the models have kind of went back on that and are now showing more clippers, more of a northwest flow. Again, it probably won't be continuous. You can see it's interrupted here, but as soon as it comes back, it's right back to that same thing. And again, it looks as if the southwest, the western United States look high and dry. And if you looked at my winter outlook, winter forecast, that is what I thought was going to happen. Now, whether or not this means this is the start of something bigger or it's just a one-time thing, we will have to wait and see. But I do believe that this upcoming winter will be cold, especially across the northern United States, the north central United States, the northeast. A lot of big snows in the form of potential clippers, but also maybe nor'easters. But what was interesting about the 2013-2014 winter, for example, here in my area, we had 80 inches of snow almost in Chicago, which was the third snowiest winter ever. But there were a few large snow events, like there was a 12-inch one, but other than that, they came mainly in small little bouts, and it came in almost every single day. We had a little bit of snow, and with the northeast flow like this, we would have that, or northwest flow, we would have that. So we would have little disturbances, little clippers diving in, bringing snow, and then eventually some of them forming into something larger. So it's interesting that the models transition to this. And again, this is the first sign of cold and snow we are seeing in a long range from these models in a very, very long time. These models have been showing warm for the last 2 months, which is why I haven't really been recording videos, because to be honest, it was just too boring. I don't really like talking about boring stuff, and I know that you guys probably still like my daily uploads and daily updates, but again, combined with the fact I was starting a new job, it just wasn't going to be done. So notice again, yeah, the flow is northwesternly here in the long range. If you look at some of these 2-meter temperature anomalies, especially on the GFS, we just see bouts of cold air after cold after cold, right? A little bit of that warm air sneaking in, but it's just cold after cold after cold. So again, the question now remains whether or not the models will hold this together and it continues like this, and how expansive this cold air is, right? Because just a few model runs ago, potentially I think even on 6 o'clock Friday, look what it showed. Right, a complete opposite potential heat wave across early November, which is still possible, certainly, and we'll have to wait and see what exactly unfolds. I want to show you now the European model with its most latest model run, and the reason I have more confidence in this forecast is because that the European kind of agrees with the GFS, and they kind of both fell in line at the same time, the GFS and European. So notice there's going to be a little bit of a system, to say the least, across potentially the northeast and into southeastern Canada on Halloween day, into Halloween weekend. I'll do more updates on that tomorrow. I'll probably make a separate video just for that. But for today, I just wanted to focus on the long range outlook. And notice that the European, following that system, does bring a little bit of warm air in. Interesting little clipper disturbance right here. You can see that guy zooming all the way to the south. That's interesting. But notice that the cold air, where it stays, again, to the north and east. It's not like one of those situations where, I remember this was like 3 or 4 winters in a row where we had all the cold air in the northwest building up and it would occasionally sweep down. That's like a very, very La Nina pattern, and we're not really seeing that this time around, even though we are technically in a La Nina. Again, look, a northeasterly flow, the cold remains to the north and east. Again, just like in 2013, 2014. Lake effect snow, lake effect rains. And again, we will have to wait and see how expansive this cold air or warm air is. But for now, the models are kind of in agreement here. So we'll have to wait and see. This is definitely interesting, and I'll keep you guys posted on this. But for now, that's basically all I wanted to show you, a brief little update, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.